Hey guys, Brandon Woolum hanging out here in Nashville with Clark Beckham. How are you, man?
I'm great. I'm great. Doing well, thanks.
Yeah, as we sit here today, the new single Mystery has now been out for several weeks, so people have got to listen to it. If they haven't, go listen to it. It's on all your streaming services. Mystery. Tell us a little bit about how this song came about.
Yeah, so actually, I was writing in a writing camp for my church, the Belonging Co., and I was with a couple brilliant writers, and we were in a room, and I had this idea of just the beginning of the song, which is like, "You put the planets into motion," and it's like, "bum bum," and I had this beat vibe going, and the idea of like how grand God is, and yet how much He cares about all the meticulous little things about us and our lives. And then Ben and Meredith just ran with it, and I was holding on for dear life. They're so talented and so fast as they write, and we took it from there. But I loved the idea that most of the time when we talk about things that we don't understand about God, for me anyway, a lot of times it's the bad things. It's like, why do bad things happen, to good people, and all those struggles. But there's also such a severe mystery of how can such an immaculate, ultra-dimensional being who created everything and everyone and every thought and every rule of physics and every cell, every star, care about the mundane in our lives. And He does, in the way that He forgives us unconditionally. When Romans 5:20 says, where sin increased, grace increased all the more. That kind of love, like how wild is that? And it's really the meat of the song.
Yeah, you talk about being involved in Belonging Co. there. That's an advantage that songwriters here have in Nashville. Their churches are filled with some of the top songwriters in music and Christian music. How does that impact your ideas when you get an idea and you're surrounded by songwriters at least multiple times a week already just at church that you can take this idea to?
Yeah, it's a huge advantage and a blessing. 'Cause I knew these people first, not as songwriters, but as just people on the worship team with me, or just church members, and became friends, and then learned later that they wrote professionally, and then started to write with them, and then thought, oh my goodness, these people are brilliant, and then learned that they're like legendary songwriters. So it was a surprise. It's something I kind of stumbled upon, these brilliant songwriters everywhere, especially at the church I go to, but I'm sure almost anywhere you go in Nashville.
Yeah. You've talked about a moment when you were a teenager when How He Loves really impacted your life and kind of turned things around for you. Maybe share a little bit about that story.
Yeah, the love of God, which is really what this mystery is about in this song, was always something that I struggled to really grasp and believe. And there's a great quote, actually, in like a psychology book called like Survive or something like that, but it's about survival and everything. But he says in this book, we think we believe what we know, but we truly only believe what we feel. And God's love was something that I struggled to really believe on that front of really feeling it and knowing it in that way. And then when I read Romans 5:20, that where sin increased, grace increased all the more, and we sang the lyric, if grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. And that reality of even if I tried, now, of course, in the context of a life of repentance and a life of worship and trying to chase God's best for us, we're still going to fall, no matter how many times I fall in that context, that He will always forgive me every single time when I come back to Him and repent, was a very visceral reaction to a very specific type of love that just blew my mind, that I don't know anyone like that. I mean, maybe my parents, right? But I mean, if I continue to really hurt them and let them down over and over and over and over again infinitely, I feel like everyone's love has a limit, but His does not. And He's the one that needs us the least, you would think, because of how great he is. So I was singing that song, and I was in a gospel choir in college, my freshman year, campus choir from Lee University. And I was in the back row because I'm tall. And we were singing that song, and that lyric came. And I remember just like sinking down to the ground and just sitting and like crying, thinking about this concept. And then Archelius Hines, the tenor, what a name, right? The tenor section leader, I remember him just sitting beside me, having no idea what I was crying about. He sat down there too, on the risers on the stage, and just put his arm around me and was just crying with me and saying he loves you so much. And that was a monumental moment in my life, ultimately leading to this song, you could say.
Yeah, the song here, it's out with Nashville Christian Songwriters, which is where we're sitting now. We're sitting in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how you got involved with John and the team here. We've been here several times for the past few months. There's always construction going on. So if you hear stuff, they're building continually here in Nashville Christian Songwriters. Talk about how you got involved with this crew down here.
Man, I was just doing podcasts. I was just going speaking is something I love doing, and I'm passionate about doing, preaching and speaking at different events. So I started seeking out podcasts in town that would have me, and just to get better at that craft. And I came here for a podcast. I didn't even know it was a label.
Wow.
And we had talked, and then John had mentioned something about being a label. And then I was like, well, I do have this project that I'm working on that I'm thinking about shopping around to different labels. If you're interested, I'll just send you like a Dropbox link. And he's like, yeah, I'm interested. And we had talked that day and became friends. And then he listened to this project I was working on, and he's like, let's have a meeting. So that's actually how this all started, was just doing a podcast tour pretty much.
Yeah, that's awesome. As we sit here, I mean, we're 10 years away from the American Idol run, where not only were you on the show, you make a run that even a lot of people that are on the show can't say they did. I mean, you make it all the way to the end.
Yep.
If you go back 10 years now that we're sitting here and you've had time to grow and think, what do you tell that young Clark 10 years ago when you're on that American Idol run with cameras all over you at all times?
I would say you need to read 2 books, The War of Art and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think if I read those 2 books, my life would be drastically different. Now, I don't have any regrets, because the way that we live life, like that's just how it works. We don't get to go back 10 years and tell ourselves anything. But if I had to, that's just my first thought. And I do American Idol reviews on YouTube of like the current season, which has been really fun for me. And inevitably, even though I tell contestants not to, contestants will watch the video, because I critique very honestly, and sometimes it can be hard to hear. Yeah. But I get close with contestants, and when they ask me, what do I do now? Today, the thing I tell them is, you need to read War of Art, you need to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you need to study social media. Pick one platform, TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, and go all in and really study. And so I guess that's what I would tell myself.
Yeah. Back then, was there a critique that somebody gave to you online that you remember reading that stuck in your head that you never forgot, and maybe that's what led to some of this?
Yeah. You know what? And it sounds kind of pompous, but I remember feeling really proud about one performance that I did. And the guy it wasn't even when he downplayed my performance that I thought that I was very proud of. It was when, for some reason, he said, well, the best performance of the night for sure went to this person and this performance. And that person had messed up and actually cracked and everything. But for some reason, that little thing bothered me so much. And I still remember, it doesn't bother me anymore at all, but I still remember the effect it had on me and how surprised I was at how much it affected me, which is why I tell everyone, like, don't watch that stuff. Because most of the time he was positive, but it was that one time after I'd been watching him for months that he said something that I received as negative that really put me on an emotional, I don't know, it stimulated emotions that should not have been and were not helpful at all. But of course you hear things and sometimes they touch home.
For somebody that's searching on YouTube for your name and just kind of where you are these days, and they're seeing that you're on this faith journey, maybe they're wrestling with God and just all the wild stuff that's happening in life right now. What's that advice do you give to that new believer, or maybe somebody that is a believer but just is going through a lot right now when they're seeing what you're doing now?
I would say that the reward is always God. It's never the outcome of the physical things. Like, my reward is not that I'm signed to a label. That is not like that. That is a blessing that God has given me and led me to. Funding for these projects I've had in my heart for years and years and years is wonderful. That is not the prize that you chase. The prize will always be God Himself and an intimate relationship with Him and a right standing with Him, and then the rest will follow. And I've known a lot of people who have chased this bag of success, and then they finally reach it and they grab the bag and they realize it's empty and there's nothing in it. And it leads to deep depression when you have been chasing something so fervently and then you find it and it's not fulfilling. It can really be a rock bottom moment. So I would say it's very romantic to think like, I'm going to be someone someday. You know, I hate that saying. You're already somebody. You're already someone. You're everything you need to be now. And the success in your career has absolutely nothing to do with your worth or fulfillment. So I would really hammer down that point. And He's always the prize.
Yeah. Earlier during this conversation, we were talking about the single. You mentioned the word project. That sounds like more than just this mystery song that we have out now.
Yeah.
What are we looking like moving forward? How many songs are ready to go, and when will we get them?
Yeah. So the project that I showed John in the first place, I didn't even have mystery on it. This was kind of an extra thing. I've had a lot of success on Instagram posting reharmonizations, basically covers of household name worship songs that every church sings 1,000 times. I've sung 1,000 times. And basically I rearranged them in ways that I would worship God if it was just me and Him. There's no congregation you have to lead through it. It's just me playing the chords and singing the notes and melodies that I love because He loves them first, and full of my R&B and soul and jazz and gospel influences. And so it's a cover album of worship songs, full arrangements. And the first project is going to be, it's ready to go, mixed, mastered, done. I think we're just picking out the art. But that'll be releasing early 2026. And it's an EP of those types of songs.
Yeah, that's great. What about live shows? Are we going to hear any of this live outside of the Nashville area?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We don't have anything in the books right now, but with signing with NCS, getting more publicity, like literally this right now, and then my social media following doing really well. I did a couple Christmas shows that sold out in like 2 hours, and so I'm seeing like, okay, live shows, a tour, like this makes a lot of sense and is a very safe and wise decision. So that is definitely the goal for 2026, is to go on a tour where I could share all this stuff.
So on top of doing your own thing, you're helping other folks too. So if somebody is watching this and they're interested in getting into worship singing, you have something where you're coaching folks. Talk to us a little about that.
Yeah. We recorded 3 little kind of mini courses of about, one is vocal performance, one is songwriting, and one is, I can't remember what we officially named it, but what I call it is like intro to saucy chords. And now I'm going to be starting to coach people kind of through Zoom and through online, something I've done for 5 years now, basically since COVID. COVID kind of forced all the musicians to figure out some way of making an income outside of performing live. So that's what I did, and I found a love and a passion for teaching all the people the things that I wish I did know 10 years ago, you know, when I first started. And so coaching people on the vocal performance side of things, on songwriting, on even instrumentation and all the harmonies and chords and melodies and things that I'm really passionate about. I love sharing those things to people. Again, sharing the things that I wish I would have known. That's been really fun for me to get these super talented um, artists that are just starting out and saying, hey, check this out and this and this and try this instead of this. And in 30 minutes or so, I see all these doors open and their eyes get big and this huge progress is there. And that's been very fulfilling.
If somebody's watching this and this sounds like something they want to explore, where do they get in touch with you?
It would just be NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, and then you would just kind of follow the links and the beautiful buttons that they have on the website.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, the new single is out there now, Mystery from Clark Beckham, and there's going to be a lot more new music on the way as we get into 2026.